Hello, good evening, he says, sipping coffee. And welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you to go through all the action in Super League basketball this week. Dave, Thursday, my wife had bought tickets for a performance at the theatre, and originally I was supposed to be doing a EuroLeague game, but that got moved to Wednesday, so I was ended up able to go with her.
Able to go with her?
Well,
Or
yes,
to go
yes,
with
yes,
her?
yes.
Yeah,
She was
okay then.
very happy to have me. But basically, it's a show about paranormal experiences called Uncanny. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it was a podcast that became a TV show and is now touring the country.
I'm not sure we'll ever get there, Dan.
No, well, this was the thing. At halftime, I said to her, "Do you reckon me and Dave could go around the country touring?" And she was like, "Yeah, that'd be a good way of generating more money, but maybe not Curve or Theatre Royal. Maybe start out at the Y or Corby or
Yeah, or
more."
maybe somebody's garden shed. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm a man of the world. I'll happily go as far as Chesley Street.
Before we get into the action, we need to start with the latest developments in the whole
Oh my goodness,
license,
yes.
SLB, BBF, FIBA, everything. So I'm just going to read out for anybody who's not seen it the announcement that came from FIBA this week, which was following the work of the Task Force for British Basketball Clubs Matters. That's a catchy title.
Yeah.
FIBA has today lifted the temporary suspension imposed on the British Basketball Federation on October 14, 2025, which had prevented BBF from fielding a men's national team in FIBA senior competitions. As a result, Great Britain is now eligible to participate in FIBA Basketball World Cup 2027 European qualifiers starting November 27, 2025. BBF's authority to license and recognise domestic men's club competitions in Great Britain remains suspended. To that extent, and in order to ensure the stability and continuity of top tier men's basketball competition in Great Britain during this period, FIBA has entered into a direct recognition agreement with Super League Basketball. This agreement provides a framework for the organisation and governance of domestic competitions while safeguarding regulatory integrity. FIBA, through the task force, will continue to work closely with BBF and all relevant stakeholders, including UK Sport and the UK government, to support BBF in becoming a self-sustainable organisation and to ensure the long-term stability and growth of men's basketball in Great Britain. And since that, Nick Westby of the Yorkshire Post reported that, quote, multiple sources have indicated that the beleaguered governing body is close to going into administration. And then obviously yesterday it was announced that the Lithuania game would be played at the Copper Box on the 27th of November. Uh,
And just on top of that, I think the SLB then put a press release out indicating how committed it was to supporting the GB national team program. So you've
Indeed.
got to join the dots a bit there, haven't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
And one body's going into administration and the other one's saying, we'll help.
Yeah. So there's a lot to digest there, Dave. It's obviously a massive car crash for BBF, a continued slow motion, repeated car crash.
And
But we've got to a point now where we have a recognised league. We have Great Britain men's games going ahead, so there is some positive, some shaft of light coming out of it all.
yeah, yeah, it's difficult to kind of balance out the how the hell did it get this far
Mm, mm,
kind of bemoaning of the situation with the fact that it might be that it's taken somebody from outside of this country to sort out our own country.
mm,
That's the reality of it. But just going back to this week, I mean, just going back, even at the beginning of this week, I think there were some clues coming out, and it just goes to emphasize kind of the bad faith that's been going on throughout this whole process. Because
mm.
on Monday, I think City AM reported that Glickman had written a letter saying that
Yeah.
he was quite happy to recognize, for SLB clubs to run alongside his league. what?
Mm.
And and all sorts of, and wanted to bring everything back. Well, obviously at that point he must have been tipped off that this was going to happen because
Yeah.
there's been, so that sounded very reasonable in principle. In fact, it was just another ploy to try and get ahead of something that they didn't like. And then we had a nonsensical kind of, again, I think it's City AM, something like,
Yeah, City
yeah,
AM. Yeah, yeah.
the AM who again reported that that the BBF had covered itself even further glory by sending a letter to the SLB addressed to the chairman, whose name was spelt wrong.
Mm.
Um,
It's not the first time, apparently, as well, that
you
somebody
know,
of importance name has been misspelt. I'm led to believe as well, but I won't
well,
mention who.
I have two R's in Forrester, one in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
one
yeah,
at the
yeah,
end as well,
yeah,
so
yeah,
three in total, yeah. Um, and that was basically saying in something, I think it might even mention the word spirit of compromise.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And in spirit of compromise, let's all come together and blah blah blah. A load of absolute, just as bad as the maintaining stability nonsense
yeah.
that we heard. Because, and then to be fair, and we haven't entirely been on the SLB's side in all of this. There's been things that we've complained about in relation to them as well. But to be fair, they came back with an exceptional response, which just said, "Look, this isn't a game."
Mm,
And it really is, and unfortunately, it takes that level of directness to flush out the fact that they have been playing games, they continue to be playing games. They knew that this recognition announcement was coming out. It doesn't come out of nowhere.
mm,
It gets press released and sent to all the parties beforehand. It's not like FIBA just make a decision and then dump it on somebody's desk. They all know it's coming. So knowing that it's coming, they produce, this kind of, oh, let's be happy pally, work
yeah,
together.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
it's just rubbish. It's just, I mean, it's so transparent. And this is what this is what we've been dealing with over the past 9 months. We've used this phrase a number of times. You have to be, if you're in a negotiation, which ultimately this is what this has been.
mm,
Whatever mistakes they made in relation to exclusivity, and whatever mistakes they made in relation to the license, this has been a negotiation. Why do you have a court case? Because no
mm,
negotiations failed. Why did negotiations fail? Well, in my humble opinion, because one side was not acting in good faith.
mm,
That's the reality of it. And the lack of good faith has continued all this week up until this announcement.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And if you want a verification of that or a justification of that, then that justification comes from the FIBA decision, because basically they sent in three storied names in European basketball to work out what the hell was going on.
Mm,
We can call it task forces or whatever, all this stuff. That's what it was. What is going on here? How can we end up in this situation where the league is suing the federation? And there are a number of ways that they could have come out of that.
mm,
But the way that they came out of that was an um, utter rejection of the board.
yep.
There's no other way you can
No,
spit. It's not.
it's actually unbelievably decisive
Yes,
as well. For normally when a body like that comes into anything, there's a bit of on the one hand this and on the other hand that about it, but this was unbelievably decisive. There is no way you can look at what has happened over the last couple of months with the FIBA task force and think that the BBF has any credit or any credibility coming out of it. It's so open and shut. It's
it
unbelievable.
is, and yet they still spin.
Mm,
So Chris Grant resigned for personal reasons. He's on a podcast the next
mm,
week.
mm,
Basically an unchallenged podcast saying, giving his spin, despite the fact he's utterly discredited,
mm,
despite the fact that, we don't, there's nobody with any degree of insight or critical thinking ability that would really would really accept the suggestion of personal reasons the day
mm,
before the organization was about to be disemboweled by FIBA.
mm,
And yet it's still on they go. You still get these letters, and now you've heard what Nick is reporting in Sheffield about them being on the brink of administration.
mm,
You know, at what point is somebody responsible for
mm,
this?
mm,
At what point is enough enough? I do not know anybody. I've never, other than Gavin Williams as a referee, and it's a totally different function to what he's got in the in the British board as representative for Wales. I don't know personally anybody who's on that board.
mm,
Right? I know of people. Never spoken to any of them. So I don't have a I'm not in the fight. I
mm,
don't have a dog in the fight in this. No interest at all. But the only objective assessment of everything that's gone on over the past 12 months is that it is an absolute disaster.
mm,
It has failed in every which way of doing basically what it was meant to do, and that we still have people in there scrabbling around from one knee-jerk reaction to the next little bit of politics to the next knee-jerk reaction, fiddling whilst the room, which is
mm,
a legal case which could bankrupt them, burns,
mm,
right? And still playing the little games because we can. And therefore, ultimately it's people who are either in over their heads, people who are either in for the wrong reasons, or people who are out there settling scores.
mm,
That's it. I don't, and if somebody wants to come out and actually um, explain other than outside of the language of um, nonsense press release, maintaining stability, blah blah rubbish, and explain how they got to the situation they got to.
mm,
And let's be clear, FIBA will have seen the documents. FIBA will know what the court case is about. The FIBA guys will have no doubt been told of Mr. Glickman's plans to have, tournaments every 3 weeks in neutral venues and all sorts of ridiculous non-European basketball ways, basically resulting in the circusification of British basketball.
mm,
And they have utterly repudiated it.
mm.
And that is a plan that the entire BBF board signed up for.
Yeah.
So how is your position tenable? It wasn't tenable. Back in March, I said Chris Grant's position wasn't tenable. I think you agreed with me, basically.
Mm,
Um, how is anybody's position tenable?
yeah.
It's just I'm the less I would think. Hopefully, people who've listened to this nonsense for 6 years will have figured out that we are basically the least knee-jerk people around in British basketball.
Mm,
There's a lot of give and take, this and that. But you can't continue as before when before is being submerged.
yeah. Yeah.
And it's
I'm a little surprised that nobody's resigned this week, if only to get out before before UK Sport slash DCMS come in and do the dirty work for them, because one can only assume the coded language of working with what is it? Working with all relevant stakeholders, including UK Sport and UK government, to support BBF to become a self-sustainable organisation and ensure the long-term stability, means everybody must go.
yeah.
So if it was me, I'd be like, well, I might as well go now before it all
Yeah, but
implodes.
to be absolutely fair, these people are volunteers,
Mm,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
So it's not there aren't livelihoods on the line.
Mm,
I'm not even suggesting that there's a tremendous amount of bad faith going on. I
mm,
think Mr. Grant has got some questions to answer in relation to that, but certainly the impression about everything else is that it's just been nodded along
mm,
by people who meet 4 or 5 times a year, and who've placed faith in their chairperson.
mm.
Given the lack of any public pronouncements from anybody else,
Yeah. Yeah.
well, that would appear to be the proper position to take.
Yeah, I mean, my take is they're probably, for want of a better phrase, guilty by not digging deeper into it. I should imagine that it was driven through by one or maybe slightly larger group than one.
Mm.
But your job is to scrutinize.
Yeah.
So if you haven't scrutinized and you've got to this point, you failed on that regard as opposed to,
Well, yeah, it's important scrutiny because the
yeah,
scrutiny which can result in bankruptcy. It can
yeah,
result in you going before the High Court. It doesn't get more. It doesn't
mm,
get more important than that.
mm,
So I just, so I don't harbor any ill will towards any individuals. I don't know them.
mm,
But I do know that in relation to the functions that have not been performed, it makes the whole thing is unworkable, and that's clearly the position FIBA have taken. Um, so yeah, so hopefully people will accept that when you in particular, but both of us read between the lines of what this language actually means. It
mm,
is the most substantial repudiation of everything that's gone on over the past 12 months, which, to be absolutely fair and to beat our own drums for our upcoming tour, we've been, you know, we've been talking about,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, and it's one of those things whereby it would be a lie to say I get no pleasure in being right, because I
Mm,
do.
mm,
Um, because it adds hopefully to the credibility of everything else that we talk about. But we've been right since the beginning here,
mm.
you know, and it's unfortunate that it just takes somebody else, an overweening governing nationalistic body, an overweening supranational body, i.e. FIBA, to sort our mess out.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
embarrassing is that for the
It
fifth
is
biggest
very
economy in the
embarrassing.
UK?
Yeah, yeah.
This is to NBA Europe, all this stuff.
Mm,
And, you know, and we're in this, you know, I can't, I bet, you know, the concept of Garbajosa and a couple of other European big wigs coming in and looking at what the British Federation was, which is basically 12 volunteers who meet 5 times a year and then without any resources, and then the chairman who's gone off on his own frolic. I
mm.
mean, I can only imagine they looked at this and thought, what are we dealing with here?
Yeah, yeah.
Because that is not what the way it works in Spain or Italy or anything like that. You know, it is just, you know, it's where our isolation in the channel, our isolation from European basketball really does hit,
Mm,
because we are isolated from their concepts and we're isolated from how these countries work, and it's part of the reason. It's actually a substantial part of the reason why ultimately we struggle on the court.
mm.
You know, because we don't have the structures that are in place to compete in the big tournaments with these countries. And that's because they do things properly and we don't.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I would say, and I suspect nobody else is going to say it, but UK sport don't come out of this looking very good as the overarching uh, people in control. They should have been cited on this and taken some action somewhere along the line, in my view, because
Well,
that is what they are there for.
that's back to the good chap theory, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
They're there to scrutinise as well. No, we've put somebody in place who's a good chap. He'll sort it out. It's fine. We can't. We want to be. It's far too. We don't want to be getting to the mucky business of organising stuff,
Mm,
refereeing arguments between them and the league. Of course they should. Of course you're right. It's who picks the pickers. How involved are they?
mm,
You know, and it's it's a failing. And as you've talked about probably more than me, it's a failing of the policy of vaulting people in because they're good chaps who might have been involved in a couple of good non-profits, who can speak well and who can hold up a dinner table, who are good at governance. You know, as I say, I go back to that interview I had. It's all about governance. Who are good at it, and yet who are good at all of this, but my goodness, if they're not part of our circle, i.e., basketball has no circle in UK
no,
sport or
no.
Sport England. There's nobody from basketball who's kind of dragged themselves into that level of administration. So therefore, they're not from our circle. Therefore, we'll get somebody from our circle who will then go into their circle and try and sort it out.
Mm.
And they make the same mistakes time and time again. And they have done it. We can go back
It's a
in the old
catalogue. It's a
catalogue.
catalogue of nearly 20 years
Yeah.
of uh, poor leadership in some form or another that ends in tears and then we go away and we get somebody else we don't know appointed upon us to sort it all out, and it's just rinse and repeat, unfortunately.
And it's a catalogue of ignorance, because
Mm,
because if you come to something ignorant, then it doesn't matter how good a person you are, you're going to have to listen to people, and
mm,
you're going to get swayed by people, and then you've got, you know, and we've talked about it before, you know, the the need to have basketball people, the
mm,
need to have people who are invested in the sport. It's taken us, you know, 15 years, even on the playing side, to get to the point whereby now we've got a basketball GM, a GB men. We've got a British coach who's come through all the British systems.
mm,
We've got the beginning of a structure on that side of it, but
mm,
then they're being led by people at the top who basically don't understand what they need.
mm,
You know, so there are green shoots there at the bottom end. The basketball people have created
mm,
green shoots. Um, and all the time, at the top end, it's lions led by donkeys.
mm. And it's demonstrably, repeatedly failed putting in people from outside. The idea, the premise originally, going back to 2006, was you don't have any people capable of doing this. And maybe in 2006 that was true. But everything else has failed
Yeah.
multiple times in multiple different ways. So we couldn't do any worse by having a basketball person in there, could
Yeah.
we?
But they've got to be a good chap who might not
Mm,
stir things up, or who must be able to run a meeting and sit behind the
mm,
table, or run a couple of non-profits. You know, what I mean, it just is just um, an unholy um, failure at the top. And sadly, other than us talking about it, nobody else really will.
yeah. Because the reality is, who's covered this story?
Yeah,
The basketball podcasts like ours,
yeah,
Nick
that's a
at
big show.
Nick at the Yorkshire Post and Frank at City AM, and that's about it, really.
Yeah.
Nobody else. And yeah, if you could you imagine this in rugby, cricket, football, netball?
Or in any other
Yeah,
European country in relation to
yeah,
basketball.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know, Greek basketball, Lithuanian basketball. And let's be clear, it got to the point whereby we weren't going to be playing a game
yeah,
against even Lithuania game in the World Cup qualifier,
yeah,
which is basically the biggest game we could play.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And we weren't going to even have it at home.
yeah.
And we were told that, and when they were told they weren't going to have it at home, their message was, well, we're just about maintaining stability.
Mm.
I mean,
And the interesting thing is, FIBA never said that.
no,
FIBA never said you're not going to play that game. They said you're suspended until we sort it out.
yeah,
And it was BBF who came out and said that game's cancelled.
yeah.
And I went, whoa! I thought we were just sorting it out, and then the game would come back on, which is basically, by the looks of it, what FIBA thought as well, because that's what they've done.
Yeah, just beyond. We can talk around in circles for it. We've got a back catalogue now of this stuff, haven't we? Basically, on this podcast about it. But I think the back catalogue stands up quite well.
Mm,
If we look back at what we've talked about over the time,
mm,
I think generally we've been on the right side of it, and I think eventually it's just really sad that the only way that eventually that can be determined or adjudicated on is by involving FIBA. And it's Brexit all over again, isn't
mm,
it? Oh, we want to make our own rules. Yeah, great. What happens? We fucking screw them up. We
mm,
need we need the Europeans to come in and sort it out.
mm,
You know, um, if that, and if we were looking at this like this was if it was some Far Eastern country or Azerbaijan or some petty I'm not saying Azerbaijan's a petty dictatorship, but
mm,
some petty dictatorship somewhere there, and they had to come to, we'd be shush, shush, just foreigners, It's
mm,
happened to us, people.
mm, mm,
It's the equivalent of the all the expats in Spain who call themselves expats and not
mm,
immigrants. It's happening
mm,
to us.
mm,
You are what you are complaining about.
mm.
Oh man, Dan. Yeah, I mean,
So,
hopefully we can get the game once at the Copper Box. We get a full gym, and Mark and the team. Hopefully, can get some of the Lions guys in who are doing very well at the moment. See if we can make sure you can get a squad out there to give them a real game, and hopefully we can invigorate this
yeah.
and go from there.
And my advice would be buy tickets as soon as they come on sale to avoid disappointment, and go for the entertainment
Lithuanian fans.
of Lithuanian fans, because I saw them at Crystal Palace supporting Žalgiris, I saw them at Brighton supporting Ritas, I saw them in China supporting Lithuania. It is worth going. It is worth going.
Even
Buy a
if you
ticket if
remember
you can.
when London City Royals brought in the two
Yeah,
Lithuanian
yeah, yeah,
guys,
yeah,
they had
yeah,
the flags up there, Crystal Palace,
yeah,
over Crystal Palace. So yeah, absolutely get there. It'll be an incredible experience.
yeah,
I don't have a Lithuanian memory. I went to Poland in 2009, so my memory is Slovenian.
yeah.
It
I've
was
got a great memory of Slovenia as
I
well
mean, it
from
was
the World
literally
Cup 2011, I think it
Yeah, it
was.
was literally five. We were in Poland when we nearly beat the Spanish and the Slovenians. I mean, there must have been 6,000 in the
Mm,
7,000 gym in Poland. They just took over the place. It was
yeah,
awesome. But yeah, go for it. Let's invigorate this thing. Let's make it into something. Let's give these guys a reason to be proud to be playing, because it's so far these players and coaches have put in so much time and so much effort, and they've been basically stuffed over from a great height for the past X amount of years. Despite the fact that they've actually performed, certainly in qualification,
mm,
pretty impressively. I mean, last time at the Copper Box, I think we beat Greece.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, I mean, we yeah, they've done well. They've made themselves into a solid in qualification perspective, mid-level European team that you really don't want to have to come and play on the road.
Mm,
That's what we are.
mm,
So now's the chance. Let's put some resources behind them and let's make it so that 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 we can, if we ever get to a tournament again, we can absolutely have the resources to get OG or Tozan or Mari Williams or get these guys. Because
mm,
everything they've done at the basketball side of it, building up the program, all the clips that you see in the locker room, it's there.
mm,
Now it's just a matter of integrating the extra talent. And to do that, it's all about what happens off the court.
mm.
Yeah, so maybe they'll resign.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that's the point. Maybe they certainly should.
Mm,
There certainly should be a clear out, and a new body formed. Obviously, the politics of that are difficult. We are forever hamstrung by the politics of England, Scotland, and Wales, unfortunately. I don't say that without. I don't say it's got without. That's without reason. Because it is Great Britain, and the English, Scottish, and Welsh have to have a say, have to have a voice. Otherwise, it wouldn't be Great Britain. But the whole kind of supranational federation had a boat coming over the top with three national federations, and the difference in where money goes from different federations, etc. That needs clarification. We need a Barnett formula.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, you know, I look it up for those who aren't that up on devolution politics. But we need a Barnett formula to split up the money. But most of the money needs to be going through the British Basketball Federation, and then the participation money, etc., needs to be going into the national federations, and that's a whole different conversation as to how
Yeah.
they do that
And how it's spent is a
and how it's done. Yeah,
different
absolutely.
conversation as well that we probably don't have time to get into.
Well, we have time because we
We
don't do
have
anything
time.
else, do we?
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
you don't. You got to go to
yeah.
Cheshire.
I got.
As we've probably all figured out now by the sun shining out your window, it is
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
morning.
So on the premise that that administration is unlikely on a Sunday afternoon, and I'm guessing UK Sport and DCMS don't work on a Sunday afternoon on stuff like this. I feel like that's a Monday to Friday
I would think.
task. That's probably the last we'll speak of it this episode, but you never know. Maybe we'll come back to it before the Cheshire game. We'll see. Let's move on to some basketball. Friday night, starting with the trophy, which begins this weekend. Manchester Basketball 77, Cheshire Phoenix 82. No Irvin, no White. Nicholson was dressed but didn't play. So this was basically 8-a-side, like the good old days. Lindo Zona Policelli starting for Cheshire. So a really different starting lineup for them. Osaboyan with 8 early points. He was active at both ends of the floor, but Cheshire with an 11-0 run to finish the first quarter to lead 12-18.
Yeah, let's just talk about the jeopardy on this game. For once, this is actually a game which actually just matters, and it matters not only to these two teams, but it matters to every team in the country,
Yeah.
all 9 teams, because the system is such that now it's three groups of three. They only play 2 games,
Mm.
and the best runner-up in the group, which
Yeah,
will
I was going to pick that up in the
yeah.
Surrey
Okay.
game,
So
but
yeah, but yeah,
yeah,
well, yeah, fair enough. But I'll talk about it briefly. But the best runner-up will be 1-1 by
mm,
definition. They have to win one game. Somebody has to be 1-1. It has to be 2-0, 1-1, 0-0, or everybody's 1-1, right?
0-2.
0-2, yeah. Or everybody's 1-1. That's the only way it can end up. So there are limited results. So therefore, points difference matters in relation to the teams, not just in that group, but in all the other groups. But I know, yeah, I'll let you talk about
I,
it.
I I don't think there's ever been a format where points difference was more
Matters.
important than this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's kind of flawed.
Even two-legged, even
Yeah,
two-legged, the two-legged only impacts on you and the people you're
yeah,
playing.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of flawed, I'm
Mm,
afraid. I get why they've done it. They want to get to the juicy semi-final games as quick
mm,
as they can. They don't want to fill full of extra games. And we all agree that, we need the 4 tournaments because that's the history of the sport in this country.
mm, mm,
So, and happily the All-Star game has been junked after one raid inspired year.
mm,
So it has to be there, but it's a pretty flawed format.
mm,
So it put some jeopardy on. So everybody around the league is watching that game. Yeah. Secondly, you lose Skylar for Cheshire, big impact. Big impact on the way they play. And also for Manchester, you lose
Irvin.
Irvine, big impact. You know, almost kind of set themselves off against each other. So it was interesting. It was going to be interesting. Nicholson didn't play. It was interesting to know whether that was a stylistic thing or whether I
Mm.
assume he must have been hurt because um,
That was my guess.
you can't, he's too capable, a big not to throw him out there at some point, particularly if
Particularly if Skylar's not playing.
Skyler's not playing. Yeah,
Yeah.
so he was warming up, but he didn't play. I think they could have probably had a little bit of joy with him because it's a little bit like the Menzies thing. If it
Mm.
works, it works because he is so big that there is a discernible advantage
Mm.
at that end, at the offensive end. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, so be it. But you put him out there, and yeah, and then I thought Cheshire's game plan this game was good. I mean, you see Osborne scored early. We talked a little bit about it last week about how you defend Osborne because he was having 9, 10 assist games. And how Cheshire got it spot on. They didn't give up a three to Manchester, or I think Manchester were 7 from three early on. And basically, they made Osborne into a scorer. They didn't leave their guys. And if he scores, you're fine because he's scoring twos.
Mm.
And his history isn't somebody who's going to go off for 40. He's
Mm.
not going to. He's not going to be continuing that throughout the whole game as the players, as the defense, the one-on-one defenders adjust to him. So I thought they nailed their scout report, and ultimately in this game they won the possession battle as well, and that's what won this game because
Mm.
at times it was a pretty ugly game,
Mm.
but a little bit. Matt Otten talked about before the game not getting too chaotic and not getting into their pace too much. I think a little bit. I think Manchester did just a little bit too much in this game. Not a lot, but just a little bit too much.
Cheshire had another 11 unanswered points in the second quarter. Manchester were 0 of 10 from 3 at halftime, and Cheshire led by 12. Um,
But just on that, Dan, you
yeah.
see, this is the way that this is how scouting, this is why scouting and coaching and organizing actually matters, right? Because they're all of 10 from three. Yeah, because they got rookie guards, and so rookie guards are going to be up and down in games. That's going to come. They're going to make some games where they make shots, and other games where they don't. But the quality of the look they're getting wasn't great. Why wasn't it great? Because basically Manchester aren't running as much screen and roll. They're basically giving the ball, they're putting the ball in Osborne's hands and letting him operate within the kind of the middle area with four guys on the perimeter and let him pick a pass and get people open. Well, Cheshire didn't allow that. Excuse me. Cheshire didn't allow that, and which meant that their looks weren't coming off kind of paint touches and kickouts. Remember Jordan Taylor always
Mm.
talking about the best threes are the ones off paint touches? They weren't getting those looks. So they weren't getting rhythm threes. They weren't getting corner threes because of Cheshire's defense. And it was the structure and the style of their defense, which was different to the team that played Manchester last Friday, who I can't remember, who gave them those looks. Um, and therefore they're rule of 10, not because suddenly good shooters can't shoot, but it's the nature of the shots they're getting and the quality of the shots they're getting. And they held them to 32 in the first half, and that basically was the game, really.
Mm. 4 minutes ago in the third quarter, they were still up 13, Cheshire, 45-58, but added to Cassie with 10 points in a spell of 21-6. Knicks made one field goal in 9 minutes to go from 45-58 to 71-64. And at that point, they looked like they had the wind in their
Now,
sails,
the reason I say that
Manchester.
was the game is that not because of the fact that the game was over, but the fact that if they score, Cheshire are getting in the 80s somehow,
Mm.
right? That's the way Cheshire are. If you're holding Cheshire
Well,
up
they
as a
only just did because I tweeted out it's been 18 months since Cheshire have been involved in a game where both teams were under 80 points,
yeah,
and it looked
exactly.
like they were going to be that. Yeah, obviously, it didn't end up
But
that way.
you've got to get therefore if they're going to get into the 80s, you've got 32 points in the first half.
Mm.
You got to score 50.
Yeah.
Right? It's like when Bristol played Cheshire.
Mm.
Bristol got back in that game because Cheshire are going to be have runs against Cheshire. Bristol got back in that game, but ultimately you gave them a 15-point start in the first half. You scored
Yeah.
12 points in the first quarter. You got to get up to 80. So you got to get up to basically 90
Mm.
somehow. Now, Cheshire, they're not. They play lots of possessions, which is true, but they're not an awful defensive team.
Mm.
They challenge, they rebound, they compete, and they try and lull you into their game whereby you have to make one-on-one plays because they think they're better than you at doing that. But defensively, I mean, they're solid. It's just the speed that they play inflates the scores,
Mm,
right? So to get from 32 to 90 is tough, or
mm,
even to 85 is tough against them,
yeah.
and that's why I say the game's on. Now that said, what you're right, you're right. I mean, Cheshire went through a very Robinson struggled a little bit. Manchester guarded Robinson really well in this game, apart from one occasion where Cleary stood up on him and he was able to go past him. But they basically they played off him. They played about 6 feet off him at the top. So they could therefore adjust to his first move because they know that he's not going to basically take one dribble and pull up and shoot an 18-footer. That's just not his game. So if you stand off him at the 3-point line when he's got time to search to size it up, he'll shoot the ball. But once he takes a dribble, at that point he's looking to get downhill to the rim. So they played really well off him, which really impacted him. So he wasn't in the game as much towards the end. And then it came down and then they struggled to find guys who were shooting the ball particularly well, apart from Diggins, and he made some shots at the end, which made a difference. But what it meant was that Manchester were off the back of stops. The one thing you can do is you can run on Cheshire.
Mm,
And even if it's a secondary fast break, you can run on them because they crash the offensive glass. So if you look after your defensive rebounds, you can get shots. And Adikasi made a couple of three, as you say, he made some plays in this game. Got a couple of corner threes. Jones kind of got warmed up a little bit, and they played with a degree of energy, which kind of vaulted them into that 7-point lead. And the 7-point lead came off, I think, off a turnover, off an inbounds, so that the Gyms go and they're up by 7 with 4 minutes to go.
mm,
But Cheshire are going to keep shooting, and
mm.
you got to keep playing.
And Cheshire tied it up at 75. Let's just go through the last couple of minutes then. Robinson with the and 157 to go, put Cheshire ahead 77 78. Other end of the floor, Cleary attacks to the rim. Robinson did enough to put him off, and the ball goes out of bounds for Cheshire possession. Minute to go. Rideau to the rim. He can't score. Cameron tried to put it back. That didn't go in. Kick out to Diggins for three. He misses that as well. Shades of last week against Leicester there, where nothing's going in. Henry comes down the other way. 47 seconds to go. He misses a three. Johnson with the offensive rebounds. He misses a three. Ossaboyan with the offensive rebound. Almost a turnover. And then potentially the decisive bit of the game here. Johnson drives with 25.8 seconds to go. Ossaboyan is called off the ball for an unsportsmanlike. It's hard to see it in real time, but on the baseline camera, you can see Ossaboyan is pulling Cameron's shirt to drag him away from the ball. It's his fifth foul. For some reason, Rideau shot the free throws. I'm not sure how they came up with that
Oh yeah,
outcome.
okay. I mean, there's a number of things, isn't there? Firstly, Rideau was excellent at the end of this game. Defensively, he again played on the edge of physicality, but his hands were everywhere. He had 2 or 3 deflections, a couple of steals. Um, just basically was just a pest and a nuisance, and really made a massive difference in this game for all the things we've said about him previously. I thought he was a difference maker in this game. In relation to what happened, that play, you saw it from the baseline camera. It's such an unusual call to have an offensive player when they're kind of grappling position, call for sports and like fouling that way, because in reality, because normally the shirt pulling is when you're trying to hold somebody back
Mm.
when they're running away. So we haven't really seen anything like that before. Um, my initial thought, I was 50-50 on it because there is going to be when these big guys are grappling with each other, there is going to be tugging and there's going to be.
Mm.
My initial thought was obviously a foul. You can't do what he did. Did he hold on to the shirt long enough for it to be an unsportsmanlike foul, for it to be a deliberate act with the intention of gaining a specific benefit, as opposed to kind of finding himself with a bit of shirt and then not letting go as quickly as he could? Um, I'm not sure. I'm not
Mm.
sure on that one. I'll
My
be,
initial take was I didn't think it was an unsportsmanlike foul, but I watched it a couple of times, and because Cameron was running towards where the penetration was coming from,
yeah.
I wondered whether he's actually pulling him back, and therefore it is a deliberate act. And I ended up deciding I would live with an unsportsmanlike foul
Yeah,
there.
well, that's where I'm kind
Yeah,
of 149. I'm not
yeah.
that comfortable with it being at that part of the game, but you can't choose when it happens.
Mm,
What I will say is though, it is a little bit of a grey area because if you think about it, if Um, Ossaboyan did the same thing, but did it by way of setting an illegal screen. That wouldn't be unsportsmanlike.
Mm,
What he's actually gaining from it. See what
mm,
I mean? Wouldn't be unsportsmanlike. And yet then there's no play on the ball in those circumstances either.
no.
So because as I say, because I don't know if there is a specific kind of refereeing kind of dictum that, if you pull someone's shirt for long enough, then it becomes an unsportsmanlike foul.
Mm,
I don't know whether it takes into account the benefit and the purpose and all of that stuff.
mm,
So yeah, it was an unfortunate call, but as I say, it was a justifiable call.
yeah.
Or it would have been justifiable either way, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, what isn't justifiable is that they then let the wrong guy shoot the foul shots.
Yeah.
That's horrendous.
Yeah.
That makes that changes the whole game.
Mm,
Now, it's not good, to be frank, that the Manchester bench didn't notice
yeah.
because Ossaboyan should know who he's fouled.
Yeah.
Riddle was kind of out the play. He was close, but he was out the play. It wasn't
Mm,
him, right? But the reality is that is um, not only the invalidation of the two foul shots Rideau made, which shouldn't have counted.
he didn't make them. He missed them
Didn't they?
both.
Sorry,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
but
irrelevant.
that is also
I
ball
think it's possession back to Manchester for the wrong
yeah,
player taking free throws. Yeah.
yeah, ball back to Manchester.
Yeah.
So, that's horrendous.
Mm,
The last 20, the last 20, if you've got to make that call, you've got to know who was fouled.
mm,
You got so you make the call, you make the decision, you point at who it is, and you scan who it was, who was fouled.
mm,
It's
mm,
inexperience. It's an inexperienced ref. It's what we've been talking about.
mm.
It might have been the right call, but unfortunately wasn't administered in the right way. And I say I give Manchester some culpability here as well, because Cameron's not a great foul shooter either. And Rideau had been
Bizarrely, Cameron has a slightly better percentage
yeah,
than Rideau, but I think it's 66-70 or something like that.
yeah,
But
but
and to
ultimately
be fair, I didn't notice in real time
I
either.
did.
It was one of them where somebody messaged me afterwards. And I was like, oh yeah, good
I
point.
did. I
Yeah.
spotted it. Thinking they're not going to let this happen, and they did. So yeah, so that was the game changing call.
Mm.
That said, as I say, I think Rideau earned his look in this game. I thought he was really, really good in the fourth quarter.
So he misses both free throws, sideline ball. He ends up on the deck with two Manchester players around him. Foul called. He goes to the line with 23.1 seconds to go. Makes both this time. So now it's a 3-point
Yeah, they
Cheshire
had him
lead.
trapped, didn't they?
Yeah,
And I think
yeah.
Cleary reached down and fouled him. It was a
Mm,
bad foul. He didn't need to foul him in that situation. They had him trapped. They had him in some difficulties. End of game execution is actually often as important defensively as offensively. So defensively, I don't think they got that right. And he knocked these two down, didn't he?
yeah, he did. Timeout advanced the ball. It's into Johnson, hands it back to Cleary, and talking about Rideau, he picks his pocket.
Yeah.
Johnson then fouls him, and he makes two free throws to push it to 5-77-82 with 16 seconds to go.
Yeah, I thought there were times in this game I was slightly worried the physicality was going to run away with it. There was about a 2.5 minute period at the beginning of the fourth quarter where the game, even Kaz and Jason commented it, whereby somebody needed to blow the whistle because
Mm,
it became a little bit like a back and forth game of rugby league, and unfortunately none of the guys were Australian, so you never knew
mm,
who was going to win. Just not great. And I didn't also particularly like the fact that when Henry kicked the stanchion, it took Rideau pleading for a technical for a ref to give a technical 10
mm,
seconds later. That doesn't impress me. If that's a double technical situation, I'll be the ref, that type of thing.
mm,
Albeit it probably should have been an immediate tech.
mm,
But if it's not an immediate tech, you can't call it just because somebody's asking you to call it. And this is what I'm talking about with over the past few weeks with the players' influence. We're going to get to it in the next game as well. The players' influence on the game is becoming greater.
mm,
People walking on the court to talk to the referee. There are certain areas whereby probably because of the lack of recent experience of the refs, whereby players are becoming a little bit more influential in decision making than you would like. But even in that last play where Rideau got that steal that you talked about before that, there was a little bit of physicality. He didn't Cleary thought he was fouled. I'm not sure he was. I think you just got to be very careful when Rideau's around because he's hawking the ball all over the place, you know.
Mm,
Um, but you didn't get the impression that if there was going to be a kind of a minor contact pressure foul in those situations, the refs were going to call it because they hadn't
mm,
called it the whole game.
mm,
And yeah, and once Rideau got that steal, as you're talking about, that was kind of the game.
mm. Manchester went quick. Cleary tried to shoot. Rideau knocked the ball loose, couldn't keep it in place. Still Manchester ball. Johnson misses the three. Ball goes out of bounds. 1.7 seconds to go. Cheshire still with a timeout, so obviously they use it
Mm.
to advance the ball because points difference, as we talked about, hugely important. And actually the play was perfect. Diggins was open and he just couldn't handle the pass. He should have got a layup at the end there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you had a chance, but we'll see how important that is in moving
Yeah,
forward.
yeah.
Won't we?
It,
I
it,
mean, bottom line for
it won't
Cheshire,
matter if they win their
if
second
they win,
game.
they beat Leicester tonight, then that's all she wrote. And then it comes for Leicester and Manchester to beat up on each other by as many points. What this format does do is it really does place a great deal of advantage for whoever it is who ends up playing their group games last.
Mm,
I don't know who they are. I haven't even looked. But teams who know what to do. It's
mm.
not great.
Uh, so I think there are three games on the same day at the end of the
Right.
thing,
Okay.
and it's 3-4-4, so they won't have finished.
All right. Good.
Um, so Osserboyne 18.6 rebounds, Jones 14 points, Adekasi 12, Diggins 20 points and 7 rebounds, Robinson 15 points, Brenchley 14 points, 43 points off the bench for Cheshire.
Yeah, Diggins has been sneaky good. You
Mm,
know, he's not one of the guys that you necessarily talk about. He's not one of the flashier guys, but he kind of stands in the corner, knocks down shots, and if you put a mismatch on him, he'll score in the post, or he'll go get an offensive rebound.
mm,
So he really fits what they've done. They've really scout. They really, I mean, they've really scouted a good team. That the guys on that Cheshire bench with Ben, Tom, Jack, etc. You know, they've got a team which fits the way they play.
mm,
You know, and probably more so than anybody else outside of London who have the pick, obviously. And they keep winning the possession battle. And what I mean by that is their shots at the end of the game are worth more points than the
mm,
opposition, whether they make them or not. Whether
mm,
it be the number of threes they're shooting or the number of offensive rebounds they're getting. You know, they're kind of winning the micro game on the numbers every single time.
mm. Back to the league then. Caledonia Gladiators 65, Sheffield Sharks 73. Obviously, Nixon and James still out, so Sheffield with 8, Kern available. Spielman out, Williams is missing. Not sure what happened to him. So they were basically 7 players plus a
Sorry,
few minutes
Williams
for
is
Kern.
missing. What have we got an APB out on
Oh,
him?
I
Or
don't know. I don't
I
know.
think
He's
he
not
wasn't
played the
there.
last couple of weeks, so I don't
No,
know.
yeah,
I've not
yeah,
read anything about
yeah, he's
injury or,
missing. Someone tell his mother.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Caledonia with 9 of the first 11 points scored, and they held the lead for the rest of the first quarter.
Imagine if this was Premier League football. Isaac is missing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It'd be,
yeah,
it'd be a manhunt.
yeah, yeah,
World would be changing as we speak. It'd be
yeah.
page of the BBC website. Even the header for
He
Raj.
might he might have been sat on the bench. It's quite dark. I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I
I don't
couldn't see
know.
him either.
I haven't seen anything announced about him. So
All right. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I just see the ludicrousness of it. You
mm,
know, just
mm,
um. Yeah, so that brought Ragsdale in the starting lineup, and
mm,
he was obviously discombobulated about that because the guy hasn't missed a shot. It seems like he's made a ton of shots, couldn't make a shot early.
mm,
Um, Sheffield struggling as well for numbers, obviously, compared to what they had. No James, no Nixon. I mean, that's
mm,
James doesn't really count because he hasn't played yet, so you don't know how he fit. But Nixon is
mm,
probably the piece that they could least afford to lose, given his shot creation, his ability to kind of, he gives you 15 to 17 a game without you really knowing about it, if you know what I mean. And
mm,
he's kind of the beating heart of the team because he's been there for a couple of years. So both teams under strength a little bit. Um, Not a great start to the game offensively.
mm.
Um,
Better than last week for Caledonia.
Better than
Was it
last
last
week,
week they played London?
Caledonia,
Yeah.
but they are a team which is kind of reliant on making threes, and they couldn't make it.
Mm.
And they're coming off were they coming off a win from last week? Um,
Didn't they won on the Friday against Manchester, didn't they?
And
And
they
then
got beat by
lost to
London, yeah.
London. Yeah.
London, yeah, we kind of dismissed it. So yeah, um, So you kind of got the impression that both teams it was a one of those horrible football phrases, feeling people out type of game. There wasn't any particular moment you thought this guy's taking the game over.
Mm,
Um, and two teams which weren't that comfortable in their skins, I didn't think.
mm, mm. Caledonia were out to a double figure lead in the third quarter, 44-34, but Sheffield scored the next 9 points to cut it to one. And then Kern, with six in a row early in the fourth quarter, put Sheffield 53 60. Caledonia did have some chances in the final few minutes to get back into it, but they never really looked like taking advantage of any of them. I wasn't going to go through the final plays because I never felt like they were going to
Yeah.
get there, but there were a couple of random calls down the stretch that I wanted to pick up with you, Dave.
Well, there's a
Uh,
couple of random calls before that.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was. I mean, if you got the 5 minute 20 seconds mark,
Mm,
you probably haven't picked it up. You'll see Kevin Allen makes a very nice layup in his 10th consecutive second in the key.
mm, mm,
That's a problem. I mean, and that's not a knock on Kevin Allen or anything. He's allowed to stand there as long as the referee won't blow that whistle. But
mm,
literally, he goes in at 13 and he makes his layup between 4 and 3.
mm,
He only touches and he doesn't touch the ball until he gets to 4 and 3,
mm,
right? And I mean, the 3 second rule is not being enforced greatly. No one expects you to call it at 3.5 seconds,
mm,
unless you're a Lithuanian referee against Newcastle from 2 years ago. But I've
mm.
forgotten that.
Yeah.
I don't think Stu has. Um, but 10 seconds for the biggest guy in the paint.
Mm,
No, that can't happen. You
mm,
know. But go on. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and let's be clear about this. I mean, uh, you know, maybe you can call it karma after last year, or whatever. But Sheffield are getting some rubbish at the moment.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not being fun. And Atiba is standing there and
Stoically.
is stoically and yeah, you can see it's almost like you can see um. Here's the thing, right? When you go to here's an analogy you weren't expecting, right? You go to Disney World Orlando, right?
Mm,
And there is a Monsters Inc.
yeah.
thing, right? A Monsters Inc.
Roller coaster.
No, it's not a roller coaster. It's a
Oh,
joke show.
experience.
An
Okay.
experience. It's a joke show. You go in there, you queue up,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a comedy show, which is
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Right? And basically, what they want to do is to get you to laugh, right? And in order to measure your laughs, at the side of the stage, and you get to put your own jokes in as well and stuff
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
right? At the side of the stage, you've got two kind of fake laughter canisters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And as the show goes on, perfectly timed, 15 minutes. So basically, it's all planned out. But the canisters kind of fill and fill and fill and fill
Mm,
until they're full of the laughter, and you can let all the kids out or whatever, right?
mm.
You can see underneath the surface, you can see Atiba's frustration
Yeah.
canister
Yeah. Yeah.
filling
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be saying this, quite legitimately at times, because um, and to be fair, there was putting Johnny Bunyan in this. Was it
Mm.
Johnny Bunyan in this case where the ref was this the game where the ref called the technical as just before they were about to make a layup, or was that
Yeah.
last?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that was last week, wasn't
Was
it?
that last week?
Oh no,
Whatever.
this one we've got a stop ball, so I'm
Yeah,
going to pick up that as well, but it's the
yeah,
other
go
way.
on.
But yeah.
Yeah, go on.
So the two I was going to pick up then is Sheffield. Sheffield. Caledonia are trying to score, obviously.
Yeah,
Uh, Sheffield come up with the ball. Holland bangs knees with a Sheffield player and falls to the floor.
that's the one. Yeah,
And Sheffield have a 3-on-1 fast break, and
and
he's on the floor, and the referee stopped the game. And it was like, if Sheffield weren't already, they were already ahead at that point, so it wasn't the end of the world, but they'd
it,
be livid if they were 2 points, 3 points.
well, I mean, let's be clear about this. I mean, there's actually, if you go back a minute and a half before that,
Mm,
um, Chapman is running down the court and Ragsdale basically deliberately fouls. I think it was
mm,
Ragsdale deliberately fouls him. Chapman's on his left hand. He reaches across
mm,
and kind of he's dribbling on the side on, doesn't get the ball. Chapman kind of falls off balance and no call,
mm,
right? And of course, on the way down, Chapman gets himself a technical.
mm.
for basically protesting the fact that it was a clear foul,
Mm.
almost a deliberate stop the break foul.
Yeah, yeah,
They hadn't
yeah.
called, right? So at that point, I'd have been like, what are we doing here?
Mm.
Um, but then, as you say, we talked about this last week, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah,
He almost at times is Nostradamus.
yeah, yeah.
It's like we know, what's going to come. We know what these problems are because you see them when they're not big things, but then if they're not corrected, they become big things.
Mm.
So yeah, so the decision to stop the game, and my eyes popped out of my head.
Mm.
Just against. I mean, against any proper basis there's no proper basis for stopping the game because I can't tell you what's going to happen
The
now.
only thing, the only thing, if I play devil's advocate, and as I say, I wrote this down because I was like, what's he stopped the game on a 3-on-1 for? The only thing you could say is, was it Dirk Williams had the ball, was running in the direction of Holland, who was on the ground. But he wasn't in the middle of the key. He was on the halfway line. So it would have been easy to go around him. So it wasn't
People, no, it
a
doesn't.
danger. It wasn't a danger to him.
It wasn't a danger to anybody.
Mm.
Just basically, it wasn't a danger to anybody,
So,
and and there's just no proper basis for it.
yeah,
Um, and it happened last week.
yeah,
We talked about it last week, and
yeah,
it
we
didn't
did, yeah.
matter then.
Yeah.
And then it
And
happens this
and it
week.
didn't matter here because Sheffield had the lead, so they didn't need the points.
Oh,
But that doesn't mean it's right. Anyway,
yeah, no.
it's obviously a sideline ball to Sheffield. They get fouled a couple of times to get to the limit. And then Chapman goes to the free throw line. He misses the second free throw, but
Yeah.
is able to get his own rebound. Jimenez then diving for the ball knocks Chapman out of bounds. Now, surely it's a foul. I don't know how it's not a foul, but it's
Cool.
not given as a foul. And if it's not given as a foul, Chapman's gone out of bounds with the ball.
Oh,
And it wasn't signalled, nor is it on the live stats that it was a jump ball. Because the other thing is, you could say two players had to possession of the ball as they go out of bounds as a
it
jump
didn't.
ball, and therefore it's Sheffield's possession. It was their arrow, so it would have been a possession on the arrow. But that's not signalled. It's not on the stats. So if you're not calling a foul and it's a foul, it cannot be a Sheffield possession because Chapman's gone out. But they give Sheffield the ball. Now, nobody seemed to complain about it. Johnny had a bit of a chunter to the referee, but it was, how is that a Sheffield ball? It's got to be a foul.
Yeah, it was. It was a foul. I mean, it's like, um, it's going back 30 years to the kind of it
Mm,
was accidental bump,
mm,
therefore it's their ball, but it's kind of using a discretion and a jurisdiction as a referee you don't have,
mm,
you know. And I know this, I mean, it's interesting, there was in the Eagles game against the Polish team at home a few weeks ago, there was a case where Clark went to the basket, got fouled, hit on the wrist, and the ball went out of bounds, and the ref gave the ball back to the Eagles. And of course, the Polish team challenged it,
mm.
and we don't have proximate foul rules.
Yeah.
So the Polish team ended up getting the ball, despite the fact that the referees went over to Stutel, and you could see from their body language,
Mm.
see it was in the video, we missed a foul.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
the referees could have easily turned around and said, "Oh, well, we missed a foul, but the ball came off him. Therefore, you can have the ball."
Mm.
You're not allowed to do that.
No,
It's
no.
the rules of the game that matter, not what you think is some kind of inherent view as to fairness.
Mm.
So you're right. You're absolutely right. And again, in a 1 point game, that becomes utterly critical.
Yeah, yeah. But it was a 5 point game, so nobody was overly bothered. I mean, Johnny wasn't best
Wasn't,
pleased,
but
but
then Johnny was lucky. He wasn't called, Jimenez wasn't called for a foul.
yeah, yeah,
So he's
yeah,
probably thinking, well, do I really want to push it too far?
yeah, yeah. And that was basically that. That was basically the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I say it. Sheffield competed. To be fair, Kern is interesting because Kern's a little bit like Robinson, but he's 6'5". Like Robinson from Cheshire, he's 6'5". He doesn't want to shoot a jump shot at all.
Mm,
He wants to get to the rim every single time. Um, Chapman is continues to be their ace in the hole. They desperately need him. He's ticking in relation to a lot of things that are going on. You can see that players at that level know when things aren't right. And when he's running down the court and he's being bumped and he's not getting a call, and he's been ticking for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
mm,
So getting his head right for them is absolutely critical because he will win games for them. Um, Caledonia probably not deep enough at the forward spot to withhold the loss of both Spielman and Williams. Didn't shoot the ball particularly well. Um, If Williams isn't there, maybe they'll be looking to replace him, maybe looking to get an athletic wing in, something like that, to give them just a little bit more kind of going to the basket type of stuff. Um, but their game, that's a game that Caledonia probably think they let go.
Mm,
Sheffield under strength. They're at home. Caledonia's at home.
they're up 10.
They're up 10. The game was kind of there for them, but they weren't able to close it out.
Mm,
And as I say, I think a lot of it is with them is shooting variance. If Ragsdale makes his threes at his normal clip, maybe the game's out of sight.
mm. Well,
Um,
they shot 34% from the floor and 7 of 30 from three.
7 of 30 at home. That's a shooting variance game. They make, as I say, they're up at the normal percentages. Say 11 of 30 is 35%,
Mm,
36%. If they shoot that, then that's 12 more points.
mm,
And that the game's a totally different game because those 12 points might have come in the middle of the third quarter when
mm,
they still got up 10. Eventually, you got to make shots.
mm. Alan, 18 points, 13 rebounds. Malcolm and Ragsdale both with 11. Kern, 16. Lee, 16 and 8 rebounds. Deloach and Chapman, 10 each. Chapman was 2 of 11 shooting.
It's one thing I should say, and it's negligent not to point it out. Um, William Lee won this game
Mm,
for Sheffield because when they were down 10, he became the old William Lee. He
yeah,
became
yeah.
the William Lee. He made shots. He blocked about 3 or 4 shots
There
in
was
a
an
row.
incredible block way through
It
it
was
to
an
the
incredible
bench,
block,
Chris.
and then there was the an incredible call
Mm,
where he blocked Holland, I think,
mm,
who didn't get off the ground, and he blocked his shot, and the ref called a foul, and there didn't even be any contact between. I
mm.
don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, and that would have been the one if I was a team. That would have got my laugh-o-meter up to 100% because I mean they all just when a player's looking at you like that, and he just blocked 3 shots in a row, and he's flying, he's
Mm,
going, and he makes a play like that, and then the ref kind of cuts your knees off from under you. As a coach, that just like just
mm,
and that was when the game was being played. But he basically took over that game for the 7 minute period that they needed him to, and he's the reason that they came out with it.
they were 4 of 20 from three, Sheffield, and they had 38 points off the bench, 38 of 73. Let's go back to the trophy and come to Saturday. Surrey 89 is 79. Bristol Flyers 97. Still no Kuntz or McCormack for the two teams. Surrey missed the first 14 field goal attempts they had. They were 2 of 19 at the end of the first quarter. They didn't make a 2-point shot in the quarter. 0 of 8. They were 2 of 11 from 3-point range. So at this point, I'm zoning out of the game and looking up the record for most missed shots and lowest shooting percentage. Surrey United 69
Sorry,
and London Capital 19 points something or other.
am I right? Surrey were coming off that win at Manchester. Have they played since?
They didn't play last weekend. They were off
That
last
doesn't,
weekend. Yeah.
that doesn't help. They're coming off a win and they haven't played since last weekend. So you have the rust thing,
Mm,
and then you have kind of the lack of experience amongst them as well. So that's their mitigation. But you're a professional team. You have to be able to put the ball in the basket,
mm,
you know, and shooting in particular, they were getting reasonable shots. They weren't getting horrendous shots.
mm.
But
There was some bad shots, but there were also some very good shots.
yeah, but shooting is a focus thing
Mm, mm,
to a certain degree at the beginning of games. You know how that's the kind of a locked in team has had a good warm up, is feeling good about themselves, is visualize what shots they're getting, where they're going to be going in. A team that's maybe hasn't played for a while is quite comfortable after winning their last game, maybe isn't quite that. And of course, the jeopardy on this game is probably more than the jeopardy in any game this season because London's in your group.
mm,
So you got to win this game by as many as you can and try and survive against London and hope that you get through. If you can beat London, great, but that will depend on London's view of the game. So, and as you say, until Kareem Queeley came in, and at least looked like he was willing to step up and make play, and attempt to make plays. He didn't. He made a couple of threes and shot probably more threes than he has in his game in his professional life, I'm guessing. But until he came in, they just looked just lost, just without kind of any focus as to how they were going to get back into it. And they are a young team, um, but you can't put that what they played so far below their level
mm,
in the first two quarters of that game. That Bristol playing slightly above their level because Bristol played well. And Bristol are good because they know each other. They're comfortable with each other, know where their shots are coming from. We've got a nice guard rotation. Cameron Holden is providing kind of the extra. And their bigs are doing what they're meant to do. They look like it's probably as well oiled a Bristol machine as I can remember.
mm,
They've always at times have been really great, good offensive rebounders, or they've had, a scrappy team, or they've had a quick team. But this is a team which actually plays like a really solid European team. They have pretty pristine spacing. They know where the ball's got to go. They know when they're going inside to specific players. They seem to be in sync with each other, and they just pick them apart.
mm, mm.
And that was the game. I mean,
Yeah,
and Bristol will be kind of slightly frustrated that they came down to 18 because at one
yeah,
point
yeah,
thinking they could win by 30 or 40 in this
yeah.
game.
It was the lowest halftime score for the Niners, and it was their biggest halftime deficit in the season and a bit that they've been playing down 26. And of course, going back to the format, the blowout is the nightmare scenario for
Everybody else.
everybody else
Yeah.
because you're now going, oh gosh, I hope London smash Bristol
Yeah.
to bring their points difference down. And obviously, if Bristol were to beat London, then you're hoping London don't smash Surrey, which I think is the very last game of the whole group competition. So they will know roughly what they have to do going into that. But it almost guarantees London and Bristol passage through it. I
Absolutely. It
mean,
doesn't mean it
the other
doesn't
teams
mean
haven't played, so one of them could blow somebody out. But
it could,
and
but
and by the way, they would play each other in the semi-final if that was the true case.
that's yet another flaw in the format, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Why would they play each other?
They did the draw. I don't know if you saw it at halftime. They did the draw for the semi-final
I didn't. I fast
on
forward to it
Friday.
times.
Yeah.
What? So,
So
but
so
they play each
groups
other in the
one and
group.
two play each other, and then the best runner-up plays.
Well,
Uh,
surely there should be. Surely, firstly, you wait until you've got the teams,
mm.
and then secondly, you make it a condition that the team that was in the same group as the second team plays cannot play the team that was in the same group.
You're not the first person to suggest that to me, Dave.
I'm not. Well, maybe we all know what is going
Mm,
on.
mm.
That's just nonsense.
I mean, the problem is because you've got three groups of three. I'm not totally averse to the team in the same group playing each other if it's a random draw.
Why do
But
we?
I don't like the fact that it's been done
Why do?
now because, in essence, it could allow, if everything goes a certain way, it could allow London to decide: do we want to play Bristol or do we want to play
Well,
whoever's won
what's the need
going
to
to win?
draw it now? I mean, nobody knows who's going to be in it anyway, so it's not a question of fixing dates or anything or fixing gym venues.
Don't know. Don't know.
What? What? And if it's done for the publicity, well, I didn't even know it happened.
Mm,
If I don't know it happened,
mm,
as someone who's quite attuned to some of the things that are going on around the league, because we have to talk about it for about 2 hours every bloody week.
mm,
I don't know. Oh man. Oh
mm.
dear. Man, foot, gun, shush. Anyway, uh,
Anyway, so nightmare scenario for groups one and two that there's been a blowout in group three and group whichever one is it group one has not played a game yet. It's Leicester, Cheshire, and thingy being grouped. I can't remember,
yeah,
but
whatever.
anyway,
I mean, Newcastle, Sheffield, and Caledonia haven't played
haven't
yet.
played a game yet. The only other thing to pick up at the was in the fourth quarter, 8:50 to go. Small bumps. Holden might be a foul for that, but it wasn't seen. And then Holden basically throws an elbow in his face and knocks him to the ground. In any league with video replay, it's a disqualification, but the referees
Any
didn't see
league
it
with a
first
ref with
time.
his eyes open, it's there's three refs there. You've just seen there's a bit of a fracas between
Mm,
Holden and Small. How you cannot be looking at that is beyond me. How you can miss that is beyond me. I saw it straight away. I was watching Holden and Small after I saw the first bump
mm,
because your antennae go up.
mm,
Yeah, again, it's an inexperienced referee wasn't looking. What is you don't get that happening in Division Three,
mm,
Division Two. You don't. The flashpoints don't happen. Pros don't. Holden clearly Holden should have been thrown out. It's a disqualification.
mm,
It's a deliberate elbow to the face, and it's not like Small didn't make it known that he'd been deliberately elbowed to the face.
mm,
And instead we had, three blind mice. Hear no evil, see no evil, didn't happen, nothing happened.
mm,
It's, that's a type of thing, um, which tells you that you shouldn't be reffing at that level, bottom line.
mm,
And that wasn't our it wasn't the ref from last year. It wasn't Tahir. It was a ref who was in front of the bench who was staring straight at it.
mm,
Who I don't know. I don't know if he's ref games before. Don't know what level he's at. But that is something is automatic. What's going on there? Oh, I saw that. How's a player ended up with his right in front of me with his head in his hands, having been elbowed in the face, and I haven't seen it. It's just not good enough. And you can say, well, is he picking on these new refs because, we haven't had problems like this in the past? Yeah, but I don't remember as many. I don't remember as many obvious ones, if I can put it that way. Obvious things. I mean, we had an argument. Me and you had an argument last year about Abercrombie and his elbow on Long.
mm,
I thought there was a bit of intent. You didn't. That's fine.
mm,
Ref. There's no dispute about intent in relation to Holden on this occasion.
mm,
None at all. He didn't like what happened to him, took offence to what Small had done to him, and he threw an elbow to his chin with malice, and he has to go.
mm,
Instead, we didn't even see it. Not acceptable. And I don't remember many instances like that. Even, I mean, sometimes we argue about what they should have done when they see it,
mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but not that refs didn't see it. Refs ignore it. So that wasn't great. And then with 2 minutes to go, there was another, screw up at the foul shot, wasn't
Yeah,
there?
yeah, yeah. So the I wasn't going to do that one, but I'll
Oh,
I'll
well, you
do
got
it.
to mention it,
So
Dan,
so
because
Delpesh had an and one. I think one referee signalled two free throws, and the other signalled a one free throw, which I think was to hear, but he was slightly distracted by
Lloyd, yeah,
Lloyd. So the free throw is missed by Delpesh. The two Bristol players are wise to the fact it's an and one, and I forget who it was. Somebody
Zach
dunked it in.
Anderson.
Zach Anderson dunks it in, and then there's a big discussion, and they presumably decide, because somebody signalled two, it was unfair that one set of team
I,
rebounded and the other one
I'm
didn't, so
interested.
they
No,
did
I'm
it again.
interested to know that. I mean, I disagree. I think it's credit to Bristol. 2 points. We will get on with the game.
Yeah, yeah,
My view is, Bristol were more into the game than Surrey were. The Bristol
yeah,
guys were aware,
yeah.
you know. And of course, when the referee administers the ball to the foul shooter
Mm,
for the shot, he should be saying one shot or two shots,
mm,
right? And if the referee who administers it has said two shots, at that point, is there a reason, does that become a correctable error which allow you to cancel the play and start again? I don't know.
mm.
I
I
don't
don't
see.
know.
I mean,
I
here's
don't
the
know what the I don't know
rule.
what the
It
rules
says
of
that.
it is, but like you, I thought, well, it was one free throw. He should get the points, but
I think Bristol made the play. Should get the points. It's very noticeable that when they're giving the ball back, the ref stepped in and went one.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And it's like, again, you think, oh, that's a 20-point game. Does it really matter?
Mm.
Well, it might matter on points difference.
Well, it might matter on points difference because on the ensuing free throw, he misses it, and Bristol got a three-pointer, so they actually benefited from it being
I only benefit because
redone.
Surrey had totally checked out of the game and were just
Yeah,
running down at that point.
yeah,
So, but that's, but I say it's process stuff, it's administration stuff.
yeah, yeah,
Bristol shouldn't be penalised for the guy for Zach Anderson realising, well, it was one shot and dunking it.
mm,
That's it. That should be 2 points.
yeah,
Let's not start the moment that you stop enforcing the rules and that you start kind of working on Victorian principles of equitability, like when someone's pushed out of bounds and that type of stuff,
mm,
or that when someone's fallen down injured,
mm,
I did it because it's the right thing to do. No, you do. You're there to enforce the rules. No,
mm,
that makes you unpopular, or at times that puts you in a difficult position in relation to what is the right thing to do,
mm,
and then that's a problem. Because if you're not enforcing the rules, what are you enforcing? And
mm,
how can you possibly do it consistently?
mm,
You can't. So I may be wrong about that. Maybe there's a rule that they were enforcing properly. If they are, I apologize,
mm,
but I'm not using it on its own. as to make a point. I'm using it in conjunction with the other things that we've raised over the course of the last hour in
Mm,
relation to, you know, refs missing important stuff, which is basically people being elbowed in the face. That's important.
mm,
Deliberate fouls in the half court. That's important. But then deciding to use their own quote marks judgment or unfairness in relation to what's the most equitable way of resolving things. Believe me, as somebody involved in the adversarial system, equitability doesn't often come into it.
mm, mm. So Lily 16 points, Queeley 15, Graham 11 points and 15 rebounds, Zach Anderson 19 points, 10 rebounds, Joachim and Delpesh both 17 points and 6 rebounds, and Joe Anderson, by the way, had 14 assists.
Yeah, but Joe Anderson just ran the game in the fourth quarter. I mean, he just wherever he wanted, and he impresses every time you see him. Because he does it in such an unfussy way that the unfussiness of what he does kind of he doesn't jump over anybody, doesn't jump around anybody. He rarely throws a behind the back pass or anything like that. But the unfussiness of what he does, it almost lulls the other team into a false sense of security. You
Mm,
know, I thought so I thought he really impressive. From Surrey's perspective, they got a little boost from Nadas in the third quarter. I thought Kareem Queeley was really good because I thought he took the mantle. He had 15 points on 17 shots and he was only 5 of 17. But it's sometimes when you're getting blown out like that, as a coach, you much prefer someone who takes the grasp of the nettle and says, well, I'm not letting us go out this way. I'm going to make a play. He was 3 of 12 from the 3-point line. I don't imagine he's ever shot 12 3-pointers in his life in a game, but he did it because nobody else was doing it. And you need that. And you could see he was getting, and there's a couple of times he was getting frustrated on the bench, when they were sitting in the 2-3 zone and they're just letting the Bristol guys like Zach Anderson, Johansson shoot threes up one pass. You could see there's a degree of frustration from him. So I thought Query really kind of was the only one who can kind of hold his head high about that, even though he wasn't particularly efficient. He showed a commitment to actually trying to change things. And it's the easiest thing in the world when you're a pro and things are going that badly just to go along with the show
mm.
and let it be somebody else's fault. So I was impressed with him.
So I don't think anything happened. We can just carry on to the game. Uh,
Let's say before we do it, I'm
yeah.
a little bit disappointed that we don't have our own wipe.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
when we try, I know you try and blend this in seamlessly and all of that stuff, but I think we need a wipe
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
maybe a picture of
I'll
me.
get on it. I'll get
All
on it.
right, no problem.
Cheshire Phoenix 98, Leicester Riders 78 in the trophy. Skylar White was back, but obviously limited. Acott's obviously gone. They were Leicester without Martin, and then Nduku rolled his ankle early on in the game, so they were basically playing with 7 guys. Cameron, a couple of threes. Diggins one as well. Cheshire were up double figures inside 4 minutes.
Yeah, a bit of a perfect storm for Leicester because you have to also remember that they were the only team that's beaten Cheshire since the beginning of the season, since the first week of the season.
Mm,
So that means that Cheshire have a motivation, to demonstrate that they need to put that right.
mm,
And on top of that, they have the kind of the carrot of qualification
mm,
just hanging over them. And then the perfect storm gets worse because, as you say, they're missing two guys anyway, to import players. And then Nduku steps into a three with his first touch of the game and looks good. He goes down after a minute and a half, tries to get back, can't. So then you're down to 7. That is a struggle, particularly as Menzies struggled early on.
mm,
So that basically means, from a coaching perspective, it's actually not the worst thing in the world because you don't have as many decisions to make because
mm,
they're all being made for you. And then it gets even worse when Evie picks up, Johnson picks up a couple of fouls early
mm,
of dubious repute, and Evie then picks up a third in the first half as well.
mm,
So at that point, you've got 7 players. Um, you have foul trouble. You have a lot of energy in the building. You have a motivated opposition. You're probably not getting the best shake because the other team's playing with more force than you are, and that generally means that the other team gets more calls than you. And it's tough,
Mm,
and at that point it really was a thing whereby, how close could they keep it? Could they give themselves a chance to kind of stay in the game firstly, and then could they give themselves a chance to stay in the competition secondly?
mm,
Um, I mean, Cheshire were really good in this game in a lot of the force that they used, the aggression that they played with. But they got a lot of threes early on out of getting into the paint and kicking out.
mm,
And they made those threes. The threes that they didn't make were the quick ones, the ones that you would say that they're not as good a shot. They didn't make those. But if you look at and if you, even in the first half for both teams, even I think the first quarter, probably 7 or 8 made threes for both teams, and
mm,
every single one came out of a kick out, where the ball goes inside first and comes out, and you've got shooters facing up. Apart from maybe one that Battle got because Battle can shoot it from anywhere. So that and the fact that Cheshire obviously looked at the tape in relation to Menzies and really kind of formed a view that they weren't going to give him quite as much space in the lane, and therefore he was going to have to finish through a little bit of pressure. And at times he really didn't do that very well.
mm,
Meant even though at the end of the game he was only a -1 and Sulaiman was a -27. So sometimes plus minuses etc. Can tell a different story. But I just thought that once they put up 60 in the first half,
mm.
there really wasn't a way back for Leicester.
Yeah, yeah. That's basically what I've got is Leicester with threes from Evie and Bournemouth. Rafa cut it to 7 early second quarter, 11-2 run, made it 56-38 just before half time, and that was the game, basically.
Yeah, I mean as I say, yeah, it was fun listening to our third commentator.
Mhm,
And there was some remnants of truth in what he was saying. There was a couple of missed goaltends, which were obvious goaltends because the hand went through the net
mhm,
when the ball was on the rim. There was even the first play of the game, on a was 75-25, an offensive foul by Rideau. He knocks Evie over, throws a great pass behind his back, and there's an open three. And I think because of the aggression that Cheshire played with, they got a lot of calls in the first half. And Leicester probably didn't play with that level of aggression. And by the time they started to kind of meet fire with fire, then the game was done. But I mean, when one of your coaches says on live Quote Marks TV, one of the league coaches says on why live talk Quote Marks TV, if the real refs were here,
mhm,
that's not really a state of affairs that's really sustainable
mhm,
because that is a kind of, and Rob obviously says a lot of things in the heat of the game. We all know that. I was given what I heard, I was amazed that he wasn't teched. I'll be honest, because whether he's right or wrong, and mostly he would have been right. You have to have some, self-respect, And if someone's saying if the real refs were here, well, that mean I'm not a real ref. That to me is something that if I want to be a real ref, I'm not allowing that to happen.
mhm,
So, yeah, just on the wider point, I think it is gradually becoming unsustainable when you've got a coach saying things like that. There were a couple of calls that were made. There was a call where the wrong guy got the foul. You were very polite on commentary, saying that maybe it was on the rebound. I mean, have
mhm.
we done? I know,
I couldn't see
You
where
couldn't
it
see
had
there
come
was no
from.
rebound. He threw it against the back of the backboard. He called a foul, which probably was a foul from the halfway line, which he couldn't see,
Mm,
and then called it on the wrong player.
mm,
I mean, ultimately, those are judgment calls no one gets upset about. Judgment calls made by people out of position who then don't get the details right.
mm,
That winds coaches up when you saw Rob and Pablo off the bench about it. You heard Pablo shouting, "You're at half court." Kind of got a point.
mm,
you know. Um, so that's mechanics, that's it, that's detail, that's information. So we'll see where we go with all of this. But
mm,
yeah, I mean that comment, if the real refs were here, that kind of put it all into a bit of perspective. That said, Cheshire were by far more ready to play. They knocked down the shots that they wanted. They played with great focus, intensity, energy. Rideau was excellent again. Um, and he obviously had a triple double. We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Mm,
But triple doubles are slightly misleading stats at times in relation to impacts on games. He had a really strong impact on this game.
mm.
Whether you end up with 9, 9, and 11 or 10, 12, and 10,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, it's a level of impact. You can have triple doubles which really don't have that degree of impact. Because Robinson struggled a little bit. They guarded Robinson a bit better, which meant that there was a lot of ball handling pressure on Rideau, and he was really good. Um, albeit, as ever, he played with that edge.
Mm.
So yeah.
So Leicester did get it to 12 towards the end, and I was wondering could they finish it off and give themselves an outside chance? And then the answer to that was no, because Cheshire had, I think it was 8 unanswered points or 9
Yeah, well, I
unanswered
mean,
points.
you kind of made the point, you picked it up. Ultimately, Battle struggled a little bit and
Mm.
Carey struggled a little bit in this game. And uh,
6 of 29 combined
yeah,
shooting.
Cheshire did a better job than they had in the first game of getting up into them and making them make plays. And, with Johnson being in foul trouble early, with Evie being in foul trouble basically the whole game, that doesn't really give, Leicester a lot of offense outside of that with what they
Mm,
had on the court. And Dooku wasn't there. You have Menzies, you have Sulaiman, who are basically um, probably fair to say role players. They play a role, but you're not expecting either of them to go for 25 in the game, which is where you need to be if you're beating Cheshire and Cheshire. And there's not much there. And Boardman Raffy was number 7, and Boardman Raffy is a rookie,
mm,
who played quite well, made some shots. But again, you're putting him in a role which is, far beyond what Rob would want him to be in a big game. He only played 7 minutes in the first game of the season,
mm,
you know. So yeah, perfect storm for Leicester. They'll say obviously Acott gone. They're going to need to find. They need to find a four. I really think they need to find a four.
mm,
Um, you can play Menzies and Sulaiman at the 5, or even a 4-5 who can play kind of both positions to spell Menzies. I'm not sure the centre position is as major an issue as the kind of the stretch four.
mm,
Because they don't really have that. They got to play very small to get all those shooters on the court. In the past, Rob's teams haven't had to do that. So
mm,
you're dealing with Loving, you're dealing with people like Loving and Abercrombie, and that the advantage of having a shooter who's 6'8", 6'9", who spaces the floor for you as well, who Diggins basically,
mm,
is something that Leicester really kind of need to fit. But they'll have a chance to recruit, no doubt. Now if Acott is gone, they get Martin back. Then they're back upstairs another centre.
mm,
So that's it. And and then they have talent across the roster. Um, they got to stay together though. There's little frustrations at times you can see coming in. Um, they've got to kind of resolve the Carey Evie thing a little bit, because Evie's probably the more reliable, more solid player, but Carey's by far the more explosive scorer.
mm,
And they both got the ball in their hands a lot, so those two are going to have to find a way of coalescing. I think they can. There's not that there's any friction or anything there that you can see, but it's just kind of on the court, an on-court mix.
mm,
Because at times, and quite a lot of times, Rob's going to need them both on the court. Cheshire are just kind of rolling.
mm,
They're all contributing. Brenchley contributed in this game. Diggins, as I say, has been contributing. Cameron is a pest, and he did get past half time. So he's playing again. Plays with a degree of physicality and energy, which is um, which is indicative of a guy who's pretty focused on wanting to do whatever he can to win.
mm,
And so yeah, I can't really say much more. Great weekend for them. They qualified.
mm.
They're in.
They
They've
get,
qualified, and they're not playing London.
yeah, yeah.
I
They
mean,
get,
that's about as good a weekend as they could have possibly asked for.
yeah.
Um, so yeah.
They get to sit and wait till December for everybody else to scramble for the other 3 places.
Yeah.
Brenchley, 19.6 assists, Diggins 7 of 10 shooting for 17 points. They had 6 guys in double figures. Rideau, as you say, 10 points, 12 rebounds, 11 assists. They won the rebounding battle 49-32. They had 21 second chance points.
And that's the real secret of them,
Mm,
because for all we think about the 3-point bombing, the 3-point percentage really isn't that much different to anybody else's,
Mm,
but they're winning the possession battle every single game. And if you get more shots, you've got a very good chance of winning,
yeah.
even when you don't shoot the ball well, which is what we found. So yeah, the hustle and I suppose the advantage that they have is because they're playing five out. I say it's an advantage. It's an advantage as a result of their system, because they're playing effectively five out most of the time. That means that when that shot goes up, everybody who's rebounding has a running start.
Mm,
And those guys who have running starts, those guys who are athletic, and you look at them, the balls that kind of drop in areas, Cameron, Diggins, Brenchley, they've all got a little bit of size about them, as well as kind of tenacity. Rideau will always go looking for the basketball as well. And Policelli, obviously, although he's generally normally the one shooting it. So they're all capable of, of using their length on the offensive glass and getting second and third shots. And that's because, as I say, when the shot goes up, they've got carte blanche just to crash, and they crash on the move.
mm.
So you've really got to focus on
I
defensive
think it's
rebound.
a bit more than carte blanche. I think it's an instruction.
An
I think they,
instruction, yeah,
they,
an
they are
instruction,
told,
yeah.
and if they don't, they hear about it.
Yeah,
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 exactly.
yeah,
You go rebound,
yeah,
and then come out, and then somebody else can go in and do it.
yeah.
I mean, that's it. I mean, that's what ultimately, basketball is a game of numbers. It's the only reason I'm really interested.
Mm,
It's a game of numbers. It's a game of possessions. It's a game of math. How many points can you get per shot? How many possessions can you get? Everybody gets the ball one after the other. It's not like
mm,
football, wait and keep the ball for 5 minutes,
mm,
you know? So you got to maximize that to the best that you can. And at the moment, they are doing a better job than anybody else in the league at doing that.
mm. Bournemouth Rafe, 14.7 rebounds, Battle 13, Carey 12. They shot 34% from the floor. They actually shot better from three than they did from two.
Yeah, they didn't really have an interior scorer, did they?
No.
Suleiman got to the rim a couple of times, Menzies a couple of times, Johnson a couple of times. But Cheshire did a pretty good job of making the lane, keeping the lane contested,
Mm,
for the guards. And also, we talk about it. How many times did Carey get to shoot the ball off a dribble to his left in that
mm,
game? Because I can't remember once,
no,
you
no.
know. And that's a detail which um, may not be apparent because we generally don't see things that don't happen,
Mm,
you know. But it's a big one
mm,
because that's how he's been shooting the ball really well. We've talked about that step. That's how he made the shot against that beat Cheshire.
yeah.
Skylar White was back on the screen and he stepped up and made that shot. You guarantee they've had that shot played to them a few times.
Mm,
It's the only shot that's beaten them in the past 6 weeks.
mm,
And so did it happen in this game? No.
mm,
So that's an adjustment. You've taken away one of the main scoring options for one of the guys who's going to have the ball in his hands most of the time.
mm,
And people don't realize that's the level of detail that is required to win,
mm,
or required to give yourself the best chance of winning. So yeah, overall, as I say, excellent weekend for them.
mm. I was going to do the league table, and then I realised there was only one game played since last week, so it didn't seem worth it.
Yeah,
So I didn't
no,
print it
Newcastle's still near the bottom. Don't mention it.
out. So that will do it for this week. Uh, Dave and I will be back next week. It's Cheshire, London next week,
Oh,
isn't it?
Cheshire, London next week. We may need more than 10 minutes depending
Yeah,
how we do
yeah.
that
So,
one.
so it might well be a Monday job next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hope you're taking your towel and sponge for that one. Tariq and Tariq and LaQuincy, do you? Mate? Here we go. Round 17. Yeah, that will be a fun game.
I'm sure it will. So we'll be back next week to discuss it all.
Be interested to
Uh,
see who gets charged with refereeing that one. Bless
yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah. But not me or you. That's the important thing.
No, absolutely not. Not to do.
So have a good week, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.